Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Extra Point. I'm your host, Roland Rainey, CEO of R2 Sports Management, and here we are again with episode 5 of The Extra Point. Once again, I am joined by my colleagues who are here. We got Jeremy Coleman coming out of Indiana. How are we doing today, Jeremy?
Doing good, Roland. Doing good.
All right. Out of New Jersey, we got Robert Parker. How we doing, Robert?
Doing great, Roland. Thanks for having me again.
And as always, out of the great state of New York, we got Justice Gordon. How we doing today, Justice?
Doing great, Roland. Ready to get into it.
Ready to get into it, just like I am. And as I told everyone yesterday, I am beyond excited about today's episode. Why? Because we have on this show today one of these special agents that are part of Lee Steinberg Sports Entertainment, and that agent is Selwyn Roberts. How are we doing today, Selwyn? Welcome to The Extra Point, my friend.
Hey, how you doing, Roland? Love it, man. I'm happy to be here.
Great deal. I'm happy that you are here. So we're going to kind of jump right into it, but as I promised you, we won't beat you up too much. But just like we, the fans out there, want to hear a lot what's going on with Lee Steinberg Sports Entertainment, what you guys are doing as agents, and of course the big story that's out there with Patrick Mahomes. But we'll get into that here in a second. We'll tease the fans out there just for a second. So as an agent, Selwyn, right now we're in a critical time frame, with COVID-19, not knowing what the season is going to be like. You got a lot of talented players out there that are being signed, trying to figure out what their future is like. So for you as an agent, how has this impacted you? How is this working out with you and your clients and not really knowing what the future is going to hold for the 2020 season?
Right. There's many aspects, many different ways you can look at it. I think it's kind of challenging for agents who are getting ready for the 2021 draft and going through the recruiting process. This is usually the time where you're shoring up and trying to reach out to your prospective clients across the country. It's kind of tough. Everybody's hunkered down, bubbled down in state restrictions. It's kind of tough to execute your recruiting strategy based on how you're accustomed to doing it. So recruiting is a challenge, and it just trickles all the way down. We look at it from the college perspective. You have those rising juniors that are ready to make a mark at this particular point in their career, so they can showcase the best, to put their best foot forward for the 2021 draft. So this season is in flux for the college football prospects as well. So, I think it affects everybody as a whole. So, what do we do? So we take, the film and the gameplay of their sophomore year and try to project how they're going to be, because they, leaked over a playing year. So it's just tough all the way around. When we try to adjust, Zoom has been very helpful with a lot of things on every level for recruiting. It's been helpful for the NFL. They've reverted to using Zoom to do types of training programs, any type of training they want to do with the team. They do over Zoom and things of that nature. So we're adjusting. It's still a challenge, still some ways to go across the board, but hopefully we can get a cure for this pandemic and try to get back to some type of normalcy.
Hey, Selwyn, that's a great rundown, and kind of like you mentioned, there's a lot of mechanisms out there that the NFL has been taking advantage of, a lot of teams taking advantage of to make sure that constant communication is staying up. Have you found it very difficult as an agent to, make contact with players, being able to travel? What's been the travel impact? Because as an agent, you're always on the go, especially an agent like you where you have a multitude of clients all over the place. How's that impacted you for traveling?
In the beginning, yes, it's been an issue because every state had their own rules. It's kind of like the Wild Wild West out there as far procedures the airlines had, and they landed in a certain state. What are their guidelines based on the state of origin where you came from? Some quarantined, some didn't. How long did you have to stay in that state? When you get back to your current state, how long do you have to quarantine? And then prior to that, what are the seriousness the places that you're going, and then the families that you're meeting and the players that you're meeting. So some families are like, hey, we're just going to quarantine. We want to see anybody. We're just waiting, and stand by. And some were more loose in that regard. So it was case by case basis. I tell you what, I know Chris and Lee, they're traveling. They got the face mask on, moving back and forth, trying to get stuff done. And then you still have the other actors in the equation. So business is still being conducted. So there's still meetings that are being conducted. There's still deals being cut, things of that nature. So try to move this, as expeditious as possible. But try to be practical about it. And again, the internet has been very helpful. A lot of Zoom calls, a lot of meet and greets over Zoom. So try to do that as much as possible. But if we have to do it face to face, just get out there, make it happen, and get back. But it has been challenging.
Good deal. Hey, we got more and more people that are watching in right now. So I want to take the opportunity again to welcome those that are joining us today on the Extra Point. As usual, I'm joined here with my colleagues, Jeremy Coleman out of Indiana, Justice Gordon coming out of the great state of New York, and Robert Parker coming out of New Jersey. And our guest today is one of the up-and-coming rising agents in the business, and that is Selwyn Roberts, who is an agent with Leigh Steinberg Sports Entertainment. And we're talking right now about how this recent COVID environment has been affecting his business as an agent to travel, to communicate, and how he and the rest of the agents are finding ways, along with the NFL, to communicate with each other in such a very interesting time that we're all living in. So, Selwyn, if you can do us a huge favor, and as we talked about before, we don't have to get into some other things in the future. However, would you mind telling everyone some of the players that you're representing currently?
All right, so as an agency as a whole, we have, of course, Patrick Mahomes from Kansas City Chiefs. We have Aaron Jones, running back from Green Bay Packers. We have Ronald Jones, running back from Tampa Bay. We have Jayon Brown, middle linebacker from Tennessee. We have Seth DeVal, tight end, Carolina Panthers. We have Khalil Lee. He's a tight end for the Falcons. We have Paxton Lynch, quarterback over at Steelers. We have so many players. We have so we're going to go back to the draft class. We got Tua Tagovailoa, Miami. We got Jerry Jeudy. He's now over there in Denver. We have Patrick Dillon Jr., running back over in Green Bay. We have Jamal Williams, who's also the other running back in Green Bay. We have where is this? So we said Seth DeVal. We got Danny Vitale, who's fullback, New England Patriots. We have Jeff Wilson Jr., running back of 49ers. Who else? We have Keith Ishmael. He's offensive lineman. He is out at Washington Redskins, which is getting ready to change their name. We don't know what the name is going to be yet, but as of now, it's out there with the Redskins. We have Marvell Tell III. He's cornerback out of Indianapolis Colts. We have Harrison Hand, cornerback. Just got drafted, so he's out with the Minnesota Vikings. We have, what else? We have a lot of players.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Go to the website. You're all on there. It's a lot. It's getting broken down right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, here on the Extra Point with Selwyn Roberts from Leigh Steinberg Sports Entertainment. You heard the list, and just by listening to the list, you know that this is a first-class organization one that definitely caters to good, young, wholesome athletes. Absolutely phenomenal list, Selwyn. So, how do you manage all this? You know, a lot of fans out there are wondering, when you have talent of this magnitude, how do you guys balance, you know, working with marketing and traveling to visit the players and meetings and so forth? How do you guys all balance it?
That's a very, very good question. So, I mean, we're a boutique firm, but our niche that we try to create and currently create is the culture that is full service. And we treat it like a family. All agents on deck, all the staff is on deck, so we kind of tackle each player with the mindset that, you know, trying to build as much resources behind each player. We all service every player. So there's no, hey, this is my client, this is my client. Everybody's client. And everybody brings their own skill set to the table that's very unique, that, you know, provides that uniqueness and that service that our players need. So it is challenging. It's busy. We love it. It's great. You know, and the good thing about it is that the group that we have, the synergy is just amazing. I've been, you know, in groups stuff for a very long time. You know, just like we roll with me in the military. I'm retired now, and you know the value of a good team. You know the value of synergy. You know the value of having those people with you in the foxhole. And the staff that we have here, our president, Chris Cabot, and our chairman, Lee Steinberg, VP, Julia Farron, and everybody else in between, all the agents, all of the, you know, the staff. And we all work together to tackle problems quickly. So we also have like this chat, it's called Family Chat, that Lee started on our text. And so anytime something happens, our phone blows up, we always go chatting, you know, going through and coordinating, getting stuff done. In addition to our weekly meetings and things like that. During the season, it's fun as well. We all just disperse. Everybody goes to our players' games, so we make sure that we're present. Our representatives always present at all the games, all the functions, and things like that.
Wow!
Across the country, you know, making things happen. But it's a great reward, man. It's so fulfilling, you know, to be able to talk, you know, to players, experience life with players, birthdays, weddings, childbirth, you know, things of that nature, man. It's a blessing.
So speaking of that, I want to ask you a question, because I'm almost positive about this. So this tight-knit family at Lee Steinberg Sports Agency, you guys just recently, and when I say recently, maybe earlier in the year, maybe the latter part of last year, did you go to a wedding in Denver? And was that wedding Paxton Lynch's wedding? Was that a wedding that you were stomping in my backyard? So, were you at a wedding for Paxton Lynch?
Yes, that was it. Paxton Lynch's wedding was amazing. It was an amazing time. That was like the week right after you did you were at the agent academy, like a week after. So yes, it was amazing. Colorado's a beautiful place.
It is. So yeah, once again, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Extra Point, we are here with my colleagues, Jeremy Coleman out of Indiana. We got Justice Gordon coming out of the great state of New York, and we got Robert Parker coming out of New Jersey. And our guest today is an up-and-coming rising agent with Lee Steinberg, Sports Entertainment, and that is Selwyn Roberts. So once again, thanks for joining us today, Selwyn. A lot of great information, but of course we cannot let you off the hook. We all know that at the Sports Entertainment company, you guys have a very interesting client. And that client just so happens to be Patrick Mahomes. And you all just made the biggest deal in sports industry history. So if you can share with the fans out there what and how did this journey come about, and what was some of the logic to get to this particular endpoint in the contract?
That is a Very long and loaded. I would say, to start off, it all starts with tutelage and the brilliance of Lee Steinberg. He's been doing it for a very long time. What I like about him is that, he's very unique in how he thinks. I don't go off topic a little bit, but the thing I like about Lee is that when I first met him about 3 years ago, we went out at a conference, and we were in San Francisco this whole time. And the thing that I admire about Lee, not just the history that he already has and the legacy that he's already built, and all the 300 plus clients that he's represented over his 47-year career, accolades just go on and on and on and on. But he is so smart. He is so smart. So I had the task one time after one of our executives to drive him to the event, drive him to the airport. While we're driving, we know he knows sports, but this guy, we're driving, and he is going down the street. He's telling you all of the historical events, all of the sports historical events, the architecture in the buildings, what happened during each time. Every time you see the building, you just do history of everything. Everywhere we went, he knows the history of it. So I know that, he's an avid reader. He's just super, super, super smart. So when you see a deal like this, I'm not shocked. I know, everybody else is shocked. When you look at his history, he's had a lot of record-setting deals that he's done throughout his career. I think this is like number 9 or 10 now. But that's his MO. It's just very creative in the things that he does. So starting back with Patrick's rookie year, he's leading up to the draft. Lee and Chris was very instrumental in trying to ensure that he's paired up with the right program. And luckily, Kansas City was the team that had elected him. It was just love at first sight. It was a great mix, got an excellent coach, have a great organization. And so from the beginning, the table was already spread. And then Patrick, of course, took the starting role the second year after Alex, traded. He just took off from there. So as we began, partnering with Patrick throughout his career and supporting him, it's kind of not how we did it, but determining the needs of the organization, determining the needs of Patrick, the type of things he was looking for as far as career-wise, and then just watching, how he excelled throughout the years. Unprecedented football career he's having right now. It's just unheard of. If you go back and look at all the records that he's broken just from his freshman sophomore year, it's ridiculous already. The guy's a legend in his own right already. And so, just as the years go by, his character is excellent, flawless. His gameplay is excellent, flawless. He has a great organization. It just made sense. And I think this deal, another thing that played into this, in addition to his gameplay, was that he was so young. It's easy to make a deal like this when you have a player that has a trajectory as high as Patrick's. It's not new. This type of deal was done before. If you look at it, you study Donovan McNabb's contract, a 12-year contract as well. That's how it started out back with Andy Reid again. He was out there with the Philadelphia Eagles.
So that's interesting you bring that up, Selwyn, because a lot of fans out there, when they see a deal like this that you guys orchestrated for Patrick Mahomes, and yes, it was definitely an earth-shattering deal, the biggest deal in the sports industry. But to your very point, a similar deal like this did take place with McNabb, with the Eagles. So do you think a little bit of that history kind of played into the psyche of going into this particular deal with Patrick Mahomes?
No. So that deal was a little bit different, but the terms, as far as the length, was the same. But what made this unique was that Lee and Chris had, if you look at it, it has NBA language and MLB language. Those concepts you really don't see in a NFL contract. So we're talking no trade clause. You hear about that in the NBA. You don't hear about that in the NFL, you know. And when you look at the essence of it, when we talk about trying to ensure that he doesn't outplay his contract as it relates to the value of the dollar. You know, there's a clause in there to ensure that the percentage of his earnings is comparable to the salary cap. You know, so we all know the salary cap goes up at least $10 million every year. So with a 12-year contract, that can be easily calculated that. That's over $100 million you're losing. You know, depreciated if you don't keep pace with the economy and the scale of the dollar. So a lot of those talks was in there. Of course, stuff that you've already seen, you know, in the airways. You got the guaranteed money, you got the signing bonus and things like that. Another element that was really good was the team. The Chiefs, their staff is, oh my gosh, they remind me kind of like the Golden State Warriors. Like the Warriors when they run, how pristine.
Yes. Okay.
They have the similar sense. The Kansas City Chiefs, they're just elite. I mean, just very pristine organization from the top down. And they love you. They'll do whatever it takes to keep you and to make you happy. And you kind of get that Golden State Warriors kind of feeling with the Chiefs and their staff. So kudos to the general manager, kudos to the coach, kudos to the owner as well. They work hard. Chris, our president, Chris Cabot, back and forth, you know, negotiating, making stuff work, changing stuff up, you know, and it's just a constant process leading up to it. It wasn't a one-time thing. Chris labored with the team, and the team labored, and, you know, overall, everybody was happy and got the job done. So kudos to everybody involved. But I've never seen, you know, it's very unique to see not only the chemistry. I know we talk about the chemistry in Steinberg, but the Chiefs organization is just a world-class organization. That's hands down.
Hey, that family, the legacy that goes with that family, that organization, the absolute epitome of excellence and class. So to your very point, it doesn't surprise me that that's what you all were dealing with. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, we are here on the Extra Point with our special guest, Selwyn Roberts, up-and-coming sports agent that is an agent currently with Leigh Steinberg Sports Entertainment. And for those of you that are still joining in, he laid out a litany of clients that they have. I don't even think we have that much time in another segment to get through all of those names, but I will say that they have one hell of a client list. More importantly, you have a class act list. Jones, and I kind of want to bring up something. A lot of my audience out there are military members. So for those of you who know me and know that I have, my military, all of my military background, my current military status, Selwyn is also prior military. He just retired, earlier in the year?
Oh, yes.
Just retired earlier in the year from the Army. And come somewhat of not the similar path, but some of the same things that I am doing, Selwyn has done. And he's done a phenomenal job. And then, of course, one of your clients up there in Green Bay comes from a military family. So, there's a whole lot of that. And I think a lot of that discipline, the organization, the structure, the focus, I think you would, maybe you would say a lot of that comes from that military background.
Oh, yes. And we have a couple other families. So that's Aaron's family, Aaron Jones, his family, mom and dad were sergeant majors in the Army. They did a combined almost 50 years. The dad did 29 years, and the mom did 27 years in the military. So, he grew up straight, military family. Ronald Jones as well. His father was in the military. He retired as well. And I know that Danny Vitale, he has some, his brother or his cousin, they joined Special Forces, things of that nature. So it's a lot of sprinkling of military folks throughout the organization as well. We love it. I love it.
Good deal. Hey, we don't want to take up a lot of your time, but I definitely coming on the Extra Point and sharing your knowledge and experience and the things that you guys are encountering, especially in this environment with COVID-19, dealing with the players and the uncertainty of the future of the season right now. But once again, the biggest headline that is tearing up the airwaves and the TV waves is, of course, Dad Patrick Mahomes' deal that you all pulled off. Historic, and I'm quite sure for you to be a part of that, to help build and frame that journey for the organization. I'm quite sure that is definitely one for the record books for you, that you'll take some things away from it as you continue your journey with the organization. Once again, and I personally want to thank you for the time and effort that you spent with me, especially right after I went to the Agent Academy, which was unique for me because I was at the Combine, and then I stayed an extra day to take the Agent Academy, and the things that I learned there were just astronomical. And the time that you took even after the academy, a lot of the phone calls that we had with each other and the things that you shared to help put me in a position where I also can pursue certain goals and aspirations. Man, you are a class act. Your organization is a class act. And for all the fans that are joining, once again, we are here today live with Selwyn Roberts, up-and-coming sports agent with Leigh Steinberg Sports Entertainment. And for a lot of you who may not know this, the movie Jerry Maguire was based off of Leigh Steinberg and some of the phenomenal things he did as a sports agent. So once again, Selwyn, is there anything, any parting words, any thoughts that you would like to leave us here at the Extra Point and the fans that are tuning in today?
First and foremost, thank you, everyone, for having me come on the show. It was definitely a pleasure and a blessing. I would say now we do have in the DC area, we do have a sports career conference coming up. It's going to be all online. It's going to be featuring a lot of the industry professionals in the DC area. We have a special keynote speaker from the NFLPA. So if you have any questions about the NFL and things of that nature, I'm sure you'll be able to address it at that time if time permits. So we always have, some great talent, great industry professionals coming through every month at our programs. That's one of Leigh's philosophy, always to give back, always to teach, trying to raise the next generation of industry professionals and agents. So stop by the website, steinbergsports.com, and hope to see, each and every one of you at one of our events. I'd love to talk to you.
Definitely. Hey, once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you to Selwyn Roberts, Leigh Steinberg Sports Entertainment. Thanks for stopping by The Extra Point here in association with R2 Sports Management. Thank you, Selwyn, and please have a great, great evening. Thank you for tuning in today.
All right, thank you. Talk to you later, fellas.
All right, we are back with my fellow colleagues, Jeremy Coleman, Justice Gordon, and Robert Parker. All right, gentlemen, let's get to it. You heard it directly from the man's mouth, the things that it took to put in play to make sure that this deal for Patrick Mahomes came to life. What's your guys' thoughts on this deal?
Well, I'll definitely start off here by saying that there were definitely some rumblings early in the NFL offseason that Patrick Mahomes may indeed become the first player to be that $50 million man a year. And sure enough, that's exactly what he got. So it's exciting for him. It's exciting for the Leigh Steinberg Agency to have such a momentous deal and everything that goes into this contract, like Selwyn was saying, how there's some NBA contract clauses in there, as well as Major League Baseball being tied to a percentage of the cap. It's very revolutionary for the NFL, so it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of precedent it sets for other players who are going to come along that might show the type of promise that a Patrick Mahomes still does.
Glad you mentioned it, and let's get right to it because I am dying to talk about it. I said it on episode 2. I said it again on episode 3. Once you have somebody reset the market, there are second, third, and fourth order effects. So you know who I'm getting ready to bring up. Dak Prescott. What do you think this does for the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott moving forward, Robert?
Just like we talked about it before, Roland, I think Dak Prescott has all the leverage. I think he does Kirk Cousins' impression where he plays on the franchise tag this year, possibly plays on the franchise tag next year, and then, once again, we know Patrick Mahomes has reset the market, and then he tries to swing for the fences to get that same contract or similar to Patrick Mahomes in the future, Roland.
Do you believe Dak can get a contract like Patrick Mahomes? You think Jerry Jones is willing to do that, Justice?
Most definitely not with Jerry Jones.
Most definitely not with Jerry Jones, not JJ. No.
Yeah, he's been holding out for about $35 million, just like it now. I think for the Cowboys fans who are a little bit nervous after this, I mean, there's only one man to blame. That's Jerry Jones. I mean, you go back to the beginning of 2019, the season opener. It was reported that the two sides were close to an agreement. But Dak went out for the first 3 games. I think it was against the Eagles. I think the Dolphins were another team, and the Redskins. I think he threw for 300 plus, 2 or 3 touchdowns a game. And, him and his agent, they upped the asking price. And, Jerry Jones wasn't going to go that high. So, fast forward to 2020, this offseason, I said it for the past few weeks. The best scenario for the Cowboys organization was to get it built out before Patrick Mahomes. I see, just like Robert said, I see, Dak playing. I see Dak playing that franchise tag out. And
opportunity missed
in 2021.
Exactly, opportunity missed by the Dallas Cowboys. I'm looking at some comments coming in from a variation of individuals. One, I'm going to go ahead and make some announcements about him, and that is Mike Manor, a.k.a. Coach, a.k.a. Colonel Retired, a.k.a. former baseball player and coach at the United States Air Force Academy. And I'm looking at a comment he made here that Dak is definitely not on the same level as Mahomes. But I will say this. Stats. So they put their eggs in the stats basket. They waited and waited and waited, and here we are. So here's something else that we didn't really get into with Selwyn, and this goes back to Patrick Mahomes' contract. I think a lot of people, when they see that large number over 10 years, and forgive me for going a little nerdy with salary cap numbers and so forth, but what is going to happen over the next 10 years? As a matter of fact, I'll even shorten it. What is going to happen over the next 7 increase? Mandatory increase. That is, ladies and gentlemen, $10 million increase per year. By year 7, maybe 8-ish, this contract for Patrick Mahomes is going to have to be renegotiated again. So once again, when you start looking at current players like Dak, Lamar, who's coming up also, there's going to be I would say it is a revolutionary mechanism moving forward for owners to look at these contracts and how much money is going to be carried over, whether that's front-loaded, whether that's on the back end. What do you think there? Going back to Robert, out in New Jersey. Do you think that, once again, players like Dak and Lamar dealing with a contract that Mahomes has just established, do you think there's potential that these individuals may not get those big deals moving into the future?
Well, I just want to jump back into the Dak Prescott question, Roland, in regards to his word. If Dak Prescott somehow, some way leads the Cowboys to a Super Bowl, I think Jerry Jones is willing to open the bank. with Jerry Jones' ego, I think he will give Dak Prescott a similar contract and the yacht that he was
You heard it right here on the Extra Point. Robert, coming out of New Jersey. If Dak Prescott takes the Cowboys to the Super Bowl, JJ might give him that yacht. Well, I tell you what, I think, Robert, you make some very excellent points, especially if Dak is able to lead the Cowboys to the Super Bowl. I think, this whole conversation about salary cap, we like to call it the economics that goes into this whole process. How is that going to look moving forward? I think it's just going to be very, very interesting. But I tell you what, when you think about what Selwyn and the rest of this team has put together, we're talking about Patrick Mahomes, right? Because that contract was definitely it set the industry on fire. But look at who else they have. They have Tua down in Florida. They have JJ up here in the great state of Colorado. These guys have a phenomenal client list, and I think once again it goes back to the owner. It goes back to Lee Steinberg and what he's built over the years. You don't make a movie like Jerry Maguire based off this guy's life just by waking up one morning, right? You have to put in the work. You have to grind at it. You have to establish yourself in the industry, not as just a great agent, but someone who is trustworthy. And that's why I think they have the clientele that they have, just good, wholesome, young players who are all doing the right thing, and they're doing a phenomenal job at that organization. So want to take the opportunity here to just break a little bit. I want to recognize a couple of folks that are out there. I want to take the opportunity to change gears on the topic. Once again, a lot of social unrest out there, a lot of conversations, and a lot of people doing some great things in their own communities, using their own platforms to do some phenomenal things. And I want to give a major shout out to Eric Jones in Louisiana, part of the X Squad with his podcast. Now, his podcast has a very unique name, and I tell you, I really love it. It's called Cognac and Conversation. So that is one hell of a podcast name, but he is doing a phenomenal job down there, bringing on a lot of guests throughout the week, and more importantly, having the social awareness and the social conscious to address some of the tough conversations that are being had. So major salute to you, Eric. Keep doing what you're doing, my friend. I love it. And I'm proud to call you a friend, and I'm very much happy that I had the opportunity to go to high school with you. Getting back to the Extra Point, once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am here today with my colleagues, Jeremy Coleman out of Indiana. We have Justice Gordon coming out of the great state of New York, and we have Robert Parker coming out of New Jersey. So when you look at some of the things that Selwyn stated about their client list, man, these guys are doing a lot of things. But one of the things he mentioned was the future, right? What does the future really look like for the 2020 season? And some of the things that they are doing to stay in contact with the players, to stay in contact with the league, with the NFLPA office. Of course, just like myself, they're utilizing Zoom to stay in contact with folks. They're using all type of mechanisms. But at the same time, they still have to travel because they have to get after a lot of paperwork with these players. So what do you guys think? Just recent news, the Ivy League decided to cancel their season. Don't know what type of effects that's going to have on other sports, but what do you guys think? Justice, what do you think is going to happen with the NFL? You think we're still going to have a season here?
Last week I came on and I said, panic button too soon. I may have to eat my words on that one. With the Ivy League canceling their season, I know Ohio State, they just shut down their program. The college season isn't looking too good. I don't know if we're gonna have a season. I've seen, the NFL, they're talking about, maybe having the players wear a mask underneath their helmet, which is ridiculous in my opinion.
It is ridiculous. Yes,
J.J. Watt already came out. J.J. Watt already said, he's not playing if they put that rule in place. So, who tells, how many players will opt out if that actually happens? Reports saying, the NFL, the owners, they might, just have fans sign waivers, just release some liability. I've heard, only fill a certain amount of capacity. I really don't know what's going to happen. It's getting crazy, even with the other sports, the MLB, the NBA. A lot of people are testing positive right now in those sports. And there's no telling, how many NFL players are going to test positive. So it's definitely up in the air right now, and I couldn't give you a sure enough answer what I think because, I really don't know. So I want to take the opportunity here to I got some comments coming in, and I want to address one comment. And my fellow colleagues, my fellow scouting colleagues, I want you guys to all chime in on this. I have a comment coming in from Eric Lozano. How are you doing today, Eric? Hopefully you're doing well. So Eric's comment is, no fans, sell advertising. UFC is showing the path forward. Now, he's a big UFC fan, but he is stating that the UFC in this COVID environment is kind of showing the path forward for the baseball, for football. What do you guys think? You think that the NFL should take a couple of pointers from the UFC?
Well, I think the NFL has already come out and said with the minded social distancing, and if they do get fans in the stadium, that the first section of seats is going to be sold off as advertising space, so there isn't crossover from players on the field to fans in the stand. So I think they're going to be doing that to some degree. Whether they, keep covering more and more sections is kind of up to the NFL.
Gotcha. Hey, I got another question that's coming in here. I'm going to go ahead and entertain this one also. This is a comment, question from Jessica Schweitzer. Her question is, how would the players feel if the stands aren't packed? What do you think, Robert? If the stands are not packed, I mean, do you think there is some type of impact on the players and their ability to get into the game? Kind of like basketball, right? We've seen it. We've seen where an arena, once the energy is going, it just seems like the home team gets going and going and going. So, let's say if you have an empty stadium, do you think the players are going to be impacted in any way? Thanks for that question, Jessica.
That's a great question, by the way, Roland. But with the empty stadium and football, I don't see, because I can see an empty stadium in basketball more so than I can see it in the NFL, and just because the players feed off the fans in the stands. For example, the Seattle Seahawks, that venue and that stadium, it pumps into that defense, and not only that, the Baltimore Ravens, their fan base, the Cowboys fan base, the Steelers fan base, even the Kansas City Chiefs, Pat Mahomes, I'm pretty sure he feeds off that crowd every Sunday. So having no fans in the stands is going to rolling. But me personally, I definitely don't want to watch football with no fans in the stands.
I hear you there. Couple of more comments coming in. Want to take the opportunity to give a shout out to Denise Nickel Decker, great friend of mine. I call Denise my ride or die. Denise has been very supportive of my sports journey from the very beginning when I moved here to Colorado. So congrats on your wedding there, Denise, and thanks for logging in and watching the Extra Point today. So let's get back to Eric Lozano. I'm going to pick on you today, Eric, because Eric is big time UFC fan and saying that UFC has mapped out some type of magical pathway to deal with COVID-19. I really don't know how the NFL is going to move forward. Now, granted, they've already accomplished a couple of things, and I want to make sure I clear this up for the fans out there. This chopping down of the preseason has nothing to do with COVID-19. That was already part of the new CBA agreement. So let's not get too caught up in thinking that because of COVID, they're trying to trim down certain parts. So let's trim down the preseason. That was all on it. So going back to Eric's point about the UFC and the path forward, for you guys as scouts, there's a lot that has to go on in the off season. Right now should have been the time frame where a lot of teams should have been in training camp, doing and being very active. It gives scouts, it gives agents a lot of opportunities to network with different organizations. Well, that kind of is lost right now, right? So you have to use other mechanisms. Going back to the stadium, how would you, Jeremy, if you were Roger Goodell for a day, how would you set up or recommend stadiums be set up to basically compensate for our current environmental issues that we're currently having?
Well, one thing I might try to do is move to a kind of a GA seating type deal. It's going to be very interesting to see what type of pricing is going to go into tickets this year, because there's going to be some, stadiums are only going to be 25 to maybe 40% filled. 40% would probably be more generous than I should be. But I think the general admission type ticket is how it's going to have to be done. And then what you're going to do is you're going to be able to group yourselves with family and friends, and maybe you all can sit together. They talk about signing those waivers and releasing liability of themselves of whether you would contract COVID or not. I think there'd be a similar type of waiver that's saying I'm allowing myself to be seated with my family, so that way they can put a block of seats together, and then maybe put a few other seats, 3 or 4 seats down, whatever, is probably approximately 6 feet as far as a chair width goes, away from other groups. And I think that would be the way that you could fit more people in the stadium and not totally sacrifice the fan experience. Because, like Robert said, we don't want to watch football without the fans. The players feed off the fans. They're a much bigger aspect of the game than people realize.
Gotcha. Hey, I want to go out to New Jersey. I want to go back out to Robert. But, Robert, I'm going to throw you something here that Denise Nickel just wrote. Recommendation, 50% capacity, social distancing, checking temperature, and requiring everyone to wear masks coming into the stadium. What's your thoughts on that, Robert? You think that makes sense?
I think it makes perfect sense, Roman. Like, anytime we have a protocol,
cool.
Whether it's checking temperature, putting on face masks, social distancing, I think that's a great idea. But just like Jeremy said, I think 40% is being way too generous. So if anything, we were really looking at a 25 to 35% max capacity. I just don't see it getting to 50%, especially with, the spike and increase in the states, Florida, Arizona, California. And what about those stadiums that we have dome states that don't have retractable roofs? So what about those stadiums and building those stadiums?
Well, I tell you, Eric Lozano has just chimed in with another comment. His comment, I'm going to take this one and bring it out there to New York. Eric states that fans bring complexity and more variables that has basically more exposure to the players and to the fans. So do you guys believe that there's a way to weirdly separate or mitigate fans' interaction with players to make sure that a lot of the exposure could be minimized? Or is it, hey, once you got everybody in the stadium, the risk is just there? What do you think? Going out to Justice in New York.
I think in terms of players and fans, there's obviously ways you can, separate the two, like, pregame warm-ups. You see a lot of these guys, playing catch, signing autographs for the fans. I think you can eliminate that. But as far as the fans are concerned, it's really, I think the waiver is the key component if you're going to have a football season. I think, GMs and, owners, they're going to have to use that waiver because no matter what happens, the fans, they're going to be congested together. They have to come into the stadium. It's a big crowd outside. You got a park. There's people all around. So there's no way to really eliminate fan interaction. It's going to happen. I think the key to the season is for owners to get that waiver. If fans want to come to the games, have them sign that waiver, and they're going to have to take the risk. I mean, if you want to see a football season, I think that's the only logical way it could happen.
Well, I think we tried to tackle a very tough conversation, a very tough topic. The NFL, the NFLPA, agents, coaches, and then now you throw into the mix the fans. This is one recipe that we got to figure out pretty soon here. Hopefully we are able to figure out something. But if not, this is definitely something that we will all remember forever. But, going back to Eric, we'll go ahead, Eric. We'll give you your due, Eric, that maybe the NFL needs to take a couple of pointers from the UFC. Maybe the UFC does have some type of mechanism that the NFL could utilize moving forward. But only time can tell. Hey, once again, everyone that are chiming in, you are chiming in to The Extra Point. I am your host, Roland Randy, CEO of R2 Sports Management, and I am joined today with my colleagues coming out of New York, Justice Gordon. In Indiana, we have Jeremy Coleman, and out of New Jersey, we have Robert Parker. And for those of you who have missed it, we have recorded this session, of course. We'll replay it. It'll be on Spotify. It'll be on SoundCloud, YouTube, Spreaker. We're going all out on this because our guest today was Selwyn Roberts, up-and-coming, rising superstar agent who is a part of the Lee Steinberg Sports Entertainment team. And, of course, he was part of building and framing that successful contract negotiation for Patrick Mahomes, record-setting, the biggest contract negotiation in sports industry. So this is beyond exciting to have him on. Great guy, doing phenomenal things, and actually look forward to having him on a lot more. We'll go back. I believe, Justice, you were getting ready to make a comment there, or what's your comment?
Yeah, about going back to the UFC, I'm a big fan as well. I love the sport.
Oh, look at that, Eric. You got another fan.
I UFC 251 Saturday. It's going to be amazing.
All righty.
I think the biggest difference between the UFC and football is the UFC was able to eliminate fans completely. You know, the only people in that arena are staff members, coaches, trainers, all that. With football, there's just no way to eliminate fans. If you eliminate fans, you bring into question, you know, maybe the defense can hear some of the offensive plays, get a jump on it, stuff like that. You know, that could be run into the mix. I don't think the UFC is a great example. I think they were able to, you know, that sport is able to eliminate fans while having events. I think you can't have football without fans. You know, the energy, you know, players feed off of that, and you know, it just brings in so many obstacles, and I think that's going to be tough to duplicate what the UFC is doing.
Hey, great point there, Justice. Once again, want to take the opportunity to give a major shout out to Eric Jones, his podcast, Cognac and Conversation, also a member of the X Squad, doing phenomenal things with his podcast, tackling tough conversations down in Louisiana. Kudos to you, my friend. I look forward to always tuning into your podcast. I love watching your guests. You're doing phenomenal things, and I'm beyond excited for you, and definitely proud to call you a friend. Right back here to the extra point. Before we finish up today's episode, let's go back to the holdouts. I didn't bring this up with Selwyn because I didn't want to put him on the spot as an agent. But when players tend to hold out, especially when you had this scenario where Dak held out, there was back and forth between him and the Cowboys. And I said it, and we all said it, on episode 2 and 3, get this deal done. Because people like Patrick, people like Lamar have to renegotiate, and the longer they wait, the tougher it's going to become. Now the market has been reset exponentially. As the required percentages of incremental $10 million increases take place over the next several years, I think it just makes it difficult for a lot of these players to actually go ahead and hold out. Going out to Indiana, Jeremy, what do you think? Do you think players should start maybe taking a moment of pause and reconsidering some of these holdouts?
Well, I definitely believe they should be reconsidering holdouts, especially the guys that are already under contract. You know, guys who are like planning on skipping training camp, like we touched on. Dalvin Cook, you know, he's taking the stance where he's okay losing, you know, the new fine structure when it comes, because he's still under contract. As where a guy like Dak, he's in that 1-year deal to 1-year deal thing. So it's different because he's slated to be a free agent. There's really no penalty to him holding out. I will say that I think it's within the player's best interest to get deals done more quickly. I understand wanting to fight for your dollar value, but you know, next year's free agency could be very interesting because I know you said the cap is, you know, is supposed to be going up about $10 million every year with new television deals, how the CBA is wired. But one thing I want to bring up here is, you know, we've said that, I mean, the cap could go down next year, as crazy as that thought is, without fans in the stands. They've already said that the cap could be cut significantly. So, at what point? I mean, is a guy like Dak Prescott really going to be in a better situation next year when the cap is going where very well could be? I'm not saying it will be, but it very well could be in a more strenuous position than it was this year. And in that regard, with the Patrick Mahomes deal, they kind of hit, you know, some of his salary to a percentage of the salary cap. God forbid, does his salary go down next year too? If there is less money to be spent around on the team with the cap space, I think next year's going to be very well could be a very big variable for a lot of different free agents.
Hey, going out to New Jersey, what do you think, Robert, on what Jeremy just said? Do you think if the league takes a major economic hit, could this, almost dictate the way players are going to be renegotiating their contract? What do you think there, Robert?
I think so, Roland. But the thing that I take away from Patrick Mahomes' deal is that, of course, it's the biggest sports deal that we've ever seen. But I think the Patrick Mahomes deal helps every other player in the NFL. And the reason why I say that is because we might get to a point where they put in the CBA that, the quarterback position is going to be off the books. So the quarterback position is going to be off the books. It's not going to count against the salary cap. That's going to be more money going around for everybody, especially for those running backs, because that's the one position that's really taking a hit these last couple of years. If your name is not Ezekiel Elliott or Todd Gurley. That's just my take on that. So I think we could see an increase in holdout with the COVID-19 impact, but I just like to reiterate that we might see a spike in increase in every player's salary based on the Patrick Mahomes deal.
Yeah, great points all around, guys, and I think there are so many unknowns right now. We're just in an interesting time in our lives, and in the sports industry, there's just so many variables. Like one of the fans has already mentioned, the variables, not really understanding what the league is going to look like this season. I think we're all very hopeful, but you heard it here from Selwyn, some of the things that they had to do as agents just to work around some of the COVID-19 restrictions, not just the restrictions within the NFL, but the restrictions as they go state to state. These guys are representing players in a variation of states. And as they go state to state, each state is regulated by, certain parameters on how they are tackling COVID-19. So, a lot to be learned, which only means that we will have a lot to talk about here on The Extra Point. Once again, I want to take the opportunity to thank everyone who chimed in today. We had a phenomenal audience who chimed in. Once again, thank you very much to Selwyn from Lee Steinberg Sports Entertainment for being our guest today. And as always, my colleagues who are here coming from across the country, representing R2 Sports Management, representing The Extra Point. And before we get off, I want to once again highlight, we have Justice Gordon, scout, also a writer for the Philadelphia Sports Chronicle. The guy knows sports. We have Robert Parker coming out of New Jersey with a law background. And we have Jeremy Coleman coming out of Indiana, who also had a stint with the Kansas City Chiefs doing one of their interns. So I believe I have a great cast of individuals, and they will continue to be dedicated to bring you their knowledge and expertise and share that with you every week here on The Extra Point. Once again, I am Roland Rainey, R2, CEO of R2 Sports Management. Thank you all for chiming in today, and we will catch you next week here on The Extra Point. Have a great week.